All right, we're back, and today we get to talk about a couple of other problems that are going to be associated with the garden. So keep in mind, we've already talked about insects, at least to some degree. We've already talked about diseases, at least to some degree. We've talked about parasitic higher plants and nematodes and a few other things that are affecting the garden. And so today we get to look at the other components that are going to be important for you to kind of keep in mind. So the first one that we're going to talk about are going to be gophers, and they are going to be extremely problematic. So gophers are going to be a rodent, so a rat-like animal. They're going to have tunnels underneath the ground, and that's going to make them very difficult for you to control. So for gopher vocabulary, the tunnels are known as the run, and that's where they're going to be able to dig. They're going to go through different areas, and they are going to feed on the roots of plants. And obviously, destroying the roots of a plant means that they are going to kill it. Not only that, but they're also going to yank on some of the vegetables, and you're going to lose them. Now, gophers are going to be nocturnal, which means that they're going to be most active during the night. During the daytime, if you get up early enough, you may see them where they're going to have an opening to their tunnel as they are working. But as soon as there's a little bit of light, or there's going to be maybe about 10 in the morning, then they're going to close. They don't like to have light going into their tunnel. So they're going to close their tunnel, and they're going to hang out for a couple of hours until in the night when they're going to be active again. What's also very important for you to understand is that they're going to be coming out to the surface during the night. And so it is not uncommon for people to deal with a problem. They take care of the problem, and in a couple of weeks, the problem comes back, because when there is an empty tunnel or an empty run that somebody has killed a gopher, it is prime real estate, and other gophers will then move in and continue on with the problem. And so your first sign that you have a gopher problem is going to be a pile of soil. So this is the product of them digging, and they will then throw it outside. And what you need to also look for is a pile of soil that is kind of in a horseshoe shape. Here is where the tunnel entrance used to be, and it got completely closed off. And so when you look at this pile of soil, we know that the run is going to be running this way. And that's going to be helpful if you're going to be managing something like this. So not only can they eat the leaves, the roots and other parts of the underground plant, but the runs themselves will eventually collapse, and the holes themselves could potentially have a problem with people falling, or the trip and fall hazard, as it is referred to. So here is another big area where a problem with gophers was here, and this was taken care of. This is the culprit. So it is a rodent. It will have teeth, so be careful not to handle them. Most easy way to handle them or control them is going to be with a Maccabee trap. It is a grueling way of killing them. It's kind of like a snap where it's going to kill them. And you got to make sure that you secure the trap just in case the gopher happens to not get completely killed. It might run away with it underground, and you will never find it. So here is a gopher kind of coming out of the run, and this is very unusual. Normally, they don't like to have spectators. Normally, they don't like to even be around people. So the moment they see people, they're going to then hide and start to cover their hole. So I had an opportunity at an event in a park where there was this very friendly gopher that would come out and will pull some grass from the surrounding areas, and they'll carry it or drag it back to its burrow or its run. And here's where it completely came out. And very unusual to see this. I went to several seminars where people were saying, I heard about this, I've never seen it, but guess what? It does happen. And I was able to photograph it. And here you can see their claws. So their claws, which are designed to dig, for digging. So they can dig for several meters in a single day without any serious problem. Uh, and there's usually going to be a family inside. There's a run, and here you can see their teeth, which could be quite painful if they happen to bite you. And here's where it came out. And once again, you can see their claws for digging. And here's the gopher, and we felt sorry for them, or some people felt sorry for it, and so they gave it an apple, which it gladly took back into its den. And so here's the video, and let's play it for a second, let you watch it and see what's not common. So the gopher became the star of that show because everybody was taking photograph of him, and I guess he liked it. Some biological controls for them. Egrets, you might see them walking around their lawn. Usually they like to go more for fish. But if you see them in parks, especially El Dorado Park is horrendous for having a serious gopher problem. They're just going to wait next to one of those runs, and when they see that gopher, they'll snatch it and they'll eat it as if it was a fish. So egrets would be a biological control, as well as our common gopher snake. We do have a native snake here. Unfortunately, many people kill it, but I'll show you a photograph later on of gopher snakes. That would be the natural biological control of it. So egret looking for gophers here at El Dorado Park. There's another rodent-like animal, and that's going to be the bunnies. They are going to be very, very destructive. I know there's bunnies up in Signal Hill that they ate all of the plants for the Farm 59 when they were first established. When people have problems with bunnies in the garden, it is a serious problem. You can try to fence them out. That helps for a bit, but eventually they'll dig, or you can bury a fence deeper so that they are not going to make it. Luckily for us in the garden, we did not have the problem. However, the LAC campus had a problem with domestic bunnies that were abandoned. Eventually, they became a serious problem. The trip and fall hazard became a problem that those bunnies eventually got placed away and made into stew. Obviously, the natural control for those would be something like hawks. Some of those birds of prey, it is not uncommon to see them fly down and catch one of those bunnies and fly away with it, and eventually they'll eat. So this is where it is very important that some of those harsh chemicals that will remain within the flesh of some of those animals are used, because that will eventually go to the hawks or some of these other birds of prey. And here's a hawk that was ripping apart one of those happy little animals. We also have snails and slugs. And snails and slugs, the common garden snail was an import from Europe, from Italy. It was brought over as a delicacy because in France and Italy and some other countries, it is a prime thing to eat. And so from being here brought as something to eat, then it got away, and now it's in almost every single garden that's out there. They're also nocturnal. And so they'll come out during the night and they will eat everything, leaves, stems, and many plants. So one of the best ways that you can control them is by going during the daytime. When they're sleeping, they like to hide underneath pots, containers, areas that are nice, cool, and wet. That's where they like to be. There are also some biological controls, such as decollete snails. However, I will caution you with those predatory snails because they are restricted in certain parts of California, as well as when they finish eating the European snails, then they are going to begin to eat the plant. So they themselves will become a problem. So that's going to be the biological control. Another biological control would be rats. They like to eat snails, as well as a few other rodents. And in your chemical control, as far as organic chemicals, you have Sluggo or Scargo, which is an iron-based product that is safe for animals, safe for pets, safe for children. And so it's nothing more than iron that when the snail eats it, then it becomes toxic in their stomach and the snail dies. So Scargo or Sluggo are going to be the products that you may see out there for snails. And so here's another problem, a mollusk, as is referred to. There's might be some possums that are going to be out there. This is a native animal. It's slowly made its way over many years from South America, and now it's out here. Not a serious problem. It's more of a fright for people to see something this big. So it's also nocturnal, and if you see it during the daytime, it's probably because it was too late in finding its home and is now kind of hanging on top of a tree or on top of a fence waiting for the night. They are going to eat some of the ripened fruit, and that's where people may have a problem with them because they'll find a lot of fruit that has been bitten by them. But it's not a serious problem. What is a serious problem is going to be our brown squirrel. And this is the cute squirrel with a fluffy tail that is an invasive species. This is native to eastern United States, but gradually it has been making its way. It has no problem moving through the neighborhood through the electrical lines, and so they can jump into different areas. And they're a serious problem because they will eat the fruit. But not only will they eat the fruit, they will also drop the fruit and not allow anybody to eat them because they're not going to be ripened. So they are becoming more of a nuisance and they are becoming a serious problem where people are not very happy with them. It is unfortunate that they are eaten by the hogs, and so they are semi-protected or they are protected from being killed by people. So you might see it. People like to feed them. If they get very comfortable, they'll come to you. They'll ask for a peanut, and then they kind of run away. Be careful because they do have very sharp claws. And here's when they're asking for food. A much worse problem that those are bringing is that they are competing with our native gray squirrel. So this is the gray squirrel that should have been here. This is the native to Southern California, and you find it normally eating oaks and some of the walnuts and in some of those naturalized areas. And so it is being outcompeted by that brown squirrel, and his resources are being taken away. And so this is a serious problem because of the other squirrel that is taking this niche and some of its habitat. So that would be some of the worst problems for that squirrel, including people not being able to get some of the fruit. There's going to be a couple of other squirrels. These are going to be known as ground squirrels. And ground squirrels, because they usually find or do dig up holes in the ground. They can climb trees, but they usually prefer not to. They are going to be problem in many areas. You may see them in park, vacant areas. They'll run away back into their hole when they see you. The problem with them is that they do carry the plague. And in very large numbers, they can be a problem. So it is not uncommon for agriculture commissioners to send out inspectors and look around. And if they see large populations, they will let the person know that they need to treat for them. Again, umber snakes will be some of the, and here's a photograph from a student that sent me here in Lemon in California Heights, I think. She was looking out the window and she saw this snake in her yard. And like, why do we have a snake? So most likely an escapee from somebody's pet. But some of the gopher snake may look like this. And yes, they are a very good control for some of those animals or some of those rodents. As well as the chemical control would be a product known as fumitoxin. And this is going to be a restricted chemical. Restricted because unfortunately there has been some association or human death casualty associated with this product. It comes in this beautiful aluminum containers. And what happens is that the product is made so that when it's exposed to humidity, it becomes a gas. And so part of the treatment for gophers and other of those ground squirrels is for find a hole, find a run, put a couple of tablets, and then cover it up. Then that will gas the animals, and that's how they're going to be killed. However, some of those runs may have been connected to some homes, and then the product, the chemical, the gas, then went into the home, and entire families got killed by this product. It is restricted, so you need a special license to buy it, so pest control license, and they'll record who has it and where it went to, and you have to let them know where it's going to be used, and that's to keep track in case there's a problem. So this would be the product that works best, however, is restricted. You can find other toxins in Home Depot or your garden center, but make sure that you are actually treating for the right animal, because you might see some products being advertised for moles, which we do not have moles here in Southern California. We have pocket gophers, which their diet is very different, and it will not eat one or the other. So be careful with it. Then there's going to be problems such as this, where roof rats or rats are going to be chewing on the stems of plants. So remember, rats, rodents, they have to keep chewing, gnawing to keep filing their teeth. Otherwise, they get too big and they're not going to be able to use them. And so it is not uncommon for them to go to young trees or old trees and peel the bark, as you can see here. So this is damage from them, and this is extensive damage done to a citrus tree. So they have literally peeled back all of the stems, the bark, and so those areas will definitely die. And you might get people who ask you, well, what's wrong with my tree? And it's just the rats, the rodents that are feeding on the bark. So be aware of that, because roof rats and rats in general can also have problems in the garden. Pigeons, yes, they could be a problem. So it is known that some of their fecal matter, feces, can, in large quantities, can cause problems, can bring about diseases. So common name for them is city rats, flying rats, because you see them. Not too long ago, they came out with products that act in the same manner as a birth control. So they would feed them some kind of pill, and that would kind of sterilize them or prevent them from having laying eggs, and that would was brought out as a way of controlling them. However, we know that that's probably not a very good thing, because then other animals, native birds, may eat it as well, and then that's going to bring up a bunch of other problems. So again, right now you have some hawks that may prey upon them, but otherwise pigeons, which is a rock dove native to Europe, Italy. That's brought over here, probably for food. Now it's all over the place. So that's going to be another problem. In areas where peacocks may have gone wild, they are going to be problematic. I don't think we have any in Long Beach, but Palos Verdes Peninsula has them. Arcadia has them. They are going to be very destructive to the garden. They may get run over by cars. So yes, newly planted gardens, they're going to be destroyed by them. And even here in Long Beach, we have a flock of birds, parrots. So escapees, and now they have kind of naturalized. They do have nests, or they do nest in some of the palms and the taller trees. And they go to bed by 2nd Street. So they make it to some of the fruit, and they can make us some damage to it. And here I recorded a parrot that is found a kumquat tree, and they only eat the seeds, and the rest of the fruit gets chucked and it gets dropped. So some people may see it as a problem because it's not letting them get to their fruit. So the parrots that we have may be a problem. Some of the turtles may be a problem in ponds and waterways. So this is normally a cutesy pet. And as soon as it gets big enough, then people do not want to take care of it, and they get released into some of the ponds that we have here in the parks. They are carnivorous. And so here's where they were being fooled that there was food. So they can eat fish, they can eat a couple of other native animals, and including they can eat baby ducks and baby geese. So be careful with those. Do not put them out into the ponds. The geese themselves, the Canada geese, they're migratory. They are protected during the migration period. They like to stop in areas where there's a lot of lawn or a lot of grass, because that's what they're going to eat. So they eat grass. The problem is that they're going to take a step and they're going to poop, step, poop. And so they have to empty their stomach very quickly, because they don't want to weigh themselves too heavily, because they're going to fly. So protected, they may raise their youngs or their goslings in some of these areas. Golf courses, you might see them. Big parks, you might see them. Again, more of their fecal matter just being the problem for people. We have a few other things, such as deficiency in some of the vitamins, minerals. So here's a cycad that has a magnesium deficiency. So plants require certain vitamins and minerals, and when something is not provided to them, then they may have some things like this, or some symptoms where it's not going to look too happy, because it needs that vitamin, that mineral for it to make proper leaves and stuff. This is iron deficiency in Photinia or red tops. So the golden yellow, and so you see some leaves that are beautifully gold, nice color, and then a couple of shoots that are not. That tells you a good indicator. Plus, when you see what is known as the Christmas tree effect, where you have beautiful green veins, then we know that that is going to be iron deficiency. And so this is what happens. And here's probably nitrogen or iron deficiency, maybe nitrogen on the sweet pea shrubs. This was from a nursery, but we can see just overall yellowing of some of the leaves. And some of the tips are green. So again, just vitamins, mineral, grown in container. They need some food. And then these are going to be the damage caused by chemical. And in this case, it's going to be Roundup, which is an herbicide. And so what happened is that they use a product that, sorry, not a product, they use a sprayer that would normally be used for maybe giving plants some liquid fertilizers. Somebody made a mistake and they used it for Roundup. And so there was enough residuals within that where it would well landed on the plant. Or there's also the drift. So they may have been spraying some roses for some kind of fungicide, or some other areas nearby for some weeds, and then the wind carried the droplets and they landed on the leaf of this plant, and then the damage started to show itself. So here's just speckled, overall kind of browning. So you can see where the droplets land on this leaf right here. Here is when a weed gets sprayed with Roundup. Again, you see gradual decline and yellowing, and then eventually it dies if there was enough spray that was used. So this is a chemical damage, but caused by a herbicide or a plant, a weed killer. Here's to show you what happens with it, and more photographs of that. And this is rosemary, and last time we talked about some of the variegations on the plants, and so this has a tip that is completely mutated. So it's lacking the ability to produce chlorophyll. And so some people may see this like, oh, what's wrong with my rosemary? It's like, there's nothing wrong with it. Just a branch, a tip that mutated, and now it's unable to turn green, kind of like in the variegated forms. And you see a lesser one here. So that's it. Nothing really wrong with it. And then as temperatures soar, don't forget about sunburn. Many plants who were in full shade because of the position of the sun during the winter, now as summer comes in, now the sun is going to be a lot higher. Some of those plants now might be experiencing full sun. And with this increase in temperature and higher exposure to the sun rays, they can get sunburned. Or if you have a plant that has been inside forever and you put it outside thinking that it's going to enjoy the sun rays, it will not. A plant can get sunburned in approximately 15 minutes of being exposed to the sunlight. And so here is a guava that got exposed to a lot of sun. And so it's suffered from sunburn, and that area will eventually die, but the rest of the fruit is still fine. So be aware when this happened. You can always trace back to maybe a few weeks before or prior. There was a heat spell, and if the plant was already suffering from some kind of water stress, then that is going to compound the problem, and it's going to make the sunburn even more severe. So make sure that you water your plant if it's really hot. And there's a side view to show you the damage. We already talked about the aloe mite. We keep bringing it because it's out there. So just deformation from an aloe plant caused by the mites. And this is where it's definitely a serious problem for this plant. And then I've seen a few of these trees, and people are like, what's wrong with it? What's the disease? And the answer is, it is not. So these are trees that are hollow, and a bee colony has made itself at home. And so when there's a colony that's already established, then they become defensive and they are going to attack people. And so to exclude them, they'll spray them, they'll kill them. But there's pheromones that may attract another colony in the future. So they are going to exclude them by putting a material. So it's a foam-like material that would then harden and secure or kind of block off the area. So that's what we have here. It looks like a fungi, it looks like a disease, but it's a product to exclude the bees from reestablishing in this empty tree or hollow tree. So with that, I will let you be. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.